Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our 5th Special Needs Hangout. I'm your host, Sylvia Moraa Mochabo, founder of Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons. And as usual, it's always a pleasure to have you here and to be able to support you as caregivers, to support our families and friends, so that we ensure that there is some sort of continuity even during these tough times. So we focus on the things that matter most to us. And today we shall be having 2 very special guests. We are hoping our US guest will be able to join us. We have a small hitch because of the issues of time zones, because they're like 8 hours behind, but she's doing her best to join us. So that is great. I can see we have several people joining. All of you, welcome, welcome, welcome. Last weekend we had taken a break because we also want to give you some time to just that you take care of yourself, and so that way you will be able to take care of everyone else. So we will be giving you the last Saturday of the month. At least it's payday, and at least you can do something. Okay, for us, for those who at least have a job, for the self-employed and some of us who have. So thank you all for joining us. And I want to introduce to you Esther. Esther is here with us. Esther is the head teacher of KCCL, and she's been in the special needs space for a very long time. And I'm glad that she could at least take the time to be with us today and enable us as parents to take a dive into the special needs space and get a highlight of exactly what is going on right now in schools. What should we be doing at home now that I don't know if I'm alone in this, but have tried to do homework. I just see it piling and it's a bit difficult. So Esther, if you would, the floor is yours. Kindly take the floor and at least enlighten us and guide us. Thank you. And also remember to introduce yourself fully.
All right. Thank you very much, Sylvia. I'm delighted to be part of this conversation. I don't know whether it's okay to have my video off.
Yes, most people like seeing the speaker. I remember the last time we did the off, wanted to see the speaker.
All right, all right.
Kindly do put your video on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, so as I've said, I'm very delighted to be part of this initiative, and I must appreciate the work that Sylvia is doing through Andy Speaks. I think since COVID-19 visited our country, I know that Sylvia has been very, very active, engaging, especially the special needs community, providing resources and supports that will enable parents and the special needs community to cope during this time. So Sylvia, well done. And I know it is not easy, but I really admire your energy, your resilience, and always being there for the special needs community. So well done. Yeah, so today we will look at homeschooling during the COVID-19 times that we find ourselves in. And as you all know, this was very much unprecedented. It is something that no one saw coming, and within a day's notice or a week's notice, learning had to be converted virtually. That is for those that are learning virtually, or schools had to be transitioned to homes and that is the situation we find ourselves in. And I believe that forms the context of our conversation today. So I can see we have a good number that has joined us, and I believe others are still joining. So as I was looking at the issue of homeschooling, I thought probably I'll be addressing 2 categories of parents. I believe probably I'll be addressing parents whose children are taking the online classes, and parents whose children are not taking the online classes. And that means that the parents have taken up the role of the teacher at home. But even for those that have taken up the online classes, I still believe that parents still form a very integral part of the children's learning, because what is happening is that the contact time that the teachers have with the students is still very minimal, and things like assignments, even just helping your child access the online classes, most of them may be able to do it independently, because again, we have varied, our children have varied needs. They have varied levels of independence. So if, for example, I would give an example with myself, and sorry, did I even introduce myself, Sylvia? You had already done the introduction, so
I had done, but I said KCCL. So if you could just like give us a tidbit of history of how long you've been in the space and your experience, so that at least people will understand where you're coming from. That would be a class, because I just
right.
shallow
Okay.
one.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so as Sylvia has said, my name is Esther Wamai. I'm a special needs educator. I've been in the space of special education for the last 15 years, having taught in a number of schools that offer inclusive education for learners with special needs. I'm currently at Kenya Community Center for Learning, that we fondly refer to as KCCL. I am the principal, and we cater for learners with diverse learning challenges as a result of different neurodevelopmental conditions. So we have children on the autism spectrum. We have students with learning challenges such as dyslexia. We have students with Down syndrome, others with communication and hearing impairments, or any other developmental issue that impedes learning, and a child may not fit in the mainstream school. Those are the children that we support, and I'm excited that today I'll be interacting with the parents. I think I can even see my student is also a participant today. And so we, just like any other school in the country and in the world at large, we also have found ourselves in this unprecedented time where school has transitioned to home, and teachers are having a very difficult time, especially teachers of children with special needs, because I think for the typical learners, since they're independent learners, the learning may be a bit smoother for them. But for learners with special needs education, it can be a bit challenging, or rather it's a bit challenging for the teachers, for the parents, and even for the learners themselves, where learning has transitioned either virtually or at home. So as I maybe address the issue of homeschooling for parents of special needs children, I would like to, of course, maybe look at the challenges that the parents have found themselves in. And we all know that children with special needs have a preference, a very high preference for routine. And one of the things that COVID-19 did for our children is to disrupt that routine. And with that disruption, many challenges will come with it. I'm sure parents have noted some level of anxiety among their children. And I have been engaging my students. I have 2 classes that I'm teaching online, and so I also have been engaging the students, and I just want to hear what are the voices, the children voices, as far as COVID-19 is concerned, and from their own mouth, they have talked about anxiety. They have talked about isolation. They've talked about boredom. They've talked about missing the things they love doing. They are talking about missing school, missing their friends and teachers. So there's a whole range of emotions that the children are going through. And it's important that as parents, we are very conscious of the feelings that our children are going through, so that we are able to support them. So even as we talk about homeschooling, we are not just looking at the learning part of the child. I think we need to be very comprehensive as we look at the needs of our children. So of course, there are educational needs, and there are educational gaps that have arisen due to the extended closures of school, but there are also other secondary challenges that have come with that. And as I've said, the lockdown, the fact that children cannot go out to play with their peers, they can't go to school, they can't go to church. And so this has caused a lot of anxiety among the children. So even as you address the education needs for your child, it is important that you also address the socio-emotional needs and even the psychological needs as well. So that is very important. So now back to education, because I think that is the main topic for the day. As I said, I am assuming I'm addressing two categories of parents. Parents whose children, depending on the schools that they are going to, their children are accessing online learning, or those that are not accessing online learning, for two things. The school may even have deployed online learning, but the nature of children with special needs, they may not access virtual learning because of some challenges that they may be having. I know even from our school, we have a number of students that are not accessing the virtual learning because they may have attention issues, they may have challenges focusing, and they are not able to, you cannot engage them virtually. So that has forced us to look at other alternative options and methods, because we still want to drive engagement with our learners. We want to have a focused learning with our learners, and therefore, if the virtual classes do not work for them, then we have to come up with alternatives. So as parents, in the event that your school has deployed the virtual classes, the online learning, and your child is not able to attend the classes, the virtual classes, my advice would be engage your school and explore the different options or alternatives that are available. One of the alternatives that is available for learners with special needs, if they are not able to attend the virtual classes, is you can engage the teacher or the teachers who are teaching your child, and they can come up with digital content in terms of videos or coming up with PowerPoint presentation, very, very visual, because our children are visual learners. So just having content and of course assignments and what we're calling homework pack, because at the end of the day, I'm sure our fears as parents is regression. Every parent is talking about regression, and that's the biggest fear. So whether your child is able to access virtual learning or not, there are other alternatives that you can do or rather there are strategies that you can employ to keep your child engaged. So either working with your school or even on your own, because we have a lot of resources online that can help you support your child at home. So I'd want to just give a few tips that as a parent you can employ to support your child during homeschooling. And the first thing is you need to set up a learning space. This is very, very important. We've talked about our children loving routine. We've talked about, then they also love consistency. So it would be important that we come up with a space that the child will be able to identify with as a learning space. So that space, if you're able to replicate, okay, I don't mean maybe bringing a class to your home, but if you can create a space that gives a sense of learning to your child, that would be very helpful. And then be consistent with this space so that this is where the child knows this is where I need to be in order to learn, so that today they are not maybe learning from the bedroom, tomorrow they are learning from the sitting room, or they are learning from different spaces every other time. That kills consistency. And knowing that our children thrive in routine and consistency, it is very important that you set up that learning space. That learning space should also maybe be free of distraction. If your child is taking virtual classes, it is very important that you create a very conducive environment for your child. So if they are taking the virtual classes, ensure that there's no background noise or any distraction that will distract the child while taking the lessons. Even where the child is not taking the virtual classes, they are probably working, and they have some pack they have received from school, or there are some resources as a parent you have acquired for your child. So ensure that the space is still distraction free, and that at least it has some semblance of learning. That is very, very important. So the other tip is, once you have set up a learning space for your child, it is very important that you create structure and routine. I've talked about the need for children with special needs to operate under routine. And this I know we can all identify. So structure and routine. This is very important because, first of all, when the child knows that there's a structure, that I will wake up and do this, followed by this, and that will be happening throughout the week or throughout the month. It helps to reduce anxiety. And if the child is dealing with anxiety, that's how we end up with meltdowns, that's how we end up with tantrum. So creating a structure helps. And again, knowing that most of our children might be non-verbal, it's important that this structure and routine is sensitive to the needs of the child. So if the child is non-verbal, it helps to create visual aids for the child. Remember, most of our children may not have understanding for the passage of time. So we may not tell them that we'll be learning for an hour, then in the next 1 hour, you'll have a 30 minutes break, then maybe in the afternoon. So some of those concepts of time may not be within our children, our children's vocabulary, but it would help if you come up with a visual timetable. And the visual timetable could be maybe pictures of the activities that will be happening. So if the first activity in the morning is reading, maybe a picture of a book would help. If it's activities of daily learning, and all these resources are available for free online. So even the visual planner or the visual timetable that you can have for your child to create and establish that routine, you do not need to reinvent the wheel. Those are resources that are available online. So it is important, and once you have created the structure, it helps in building the routine. So that's another tip. Then the other tip is it is important to put together a homework plan. One of the challenges that we are facing as a school and with our parents is on helping with the homework, because we, of course, once learning is taking part, there's homework that is followed by the learning. And this is not just for children with special needs, even for the typical learners. In a school environment, the learning is controlled and there's structure. But we are now in a new environment, a new learning environment, where you, the parent, is forced to take up the role of the teacher. You're taking up the role of a parent, and for some even the role of therapist. And it doesn't even help matters to imagine that maybe you have other children that you have to tend to. You have your work obligations for those that are working, and trying to balance all that can be a very daunting task as a parent. But since we need to drive engagement, since teachers still need to send homework home so that they can evaluate how your child understood a concept, so it is very important then you come up with a homework plan. And this helps in independent learning. Once you have a homework plan, it helps in independent learning for your child, and it also helps them to complete the assignment. And by a plan here, I mean maybe creating time, setting aside time for the homework to be done, so that it is not done in a haphazard way. It is not done in a manner that it's left maybe to the whims of the child or you as a parent for the child to do the homework. So, but if there's a plan, so for instance, maybe in the visual timetable, you can have a slot when you know your child is calm and has the energy to work on the homework. So it could be maybe late in the afternoon after they have done their day's learning, so that again the homework is not conflicting with other activities, and so that again the child doesn't feel like homework is a punishment. So it helps to set some time that the child can do the homework. So this will, of course, help the child to be independent, because if they know I usually do my homework at 3 p.m., for those that are independent, they'll independently go and sit down and start doing their homework. But for those that are not independent, as a parent or whoever, the caregiver or whoever is supporting the child in doing the homework, knows that there's a structured time for that. Then the other thing is that even as part of the homework plan, if the homework is coming from the teachers, for those who have engaged their teachers, it is important that the teacher explains clearly what the homework, the expectations of the homework. Otherwise, if this is not done, it can lead to confusion, and it may not serve the purpose or the objective, because homework is not a babysitter. And I've always even told the teachers and parents that. So sometimes as parents, and I'm a victim of this, is you want your children to have homework and a lot of it, so that it acts as a babysitter, so that while the child is working on the homework, you can do something else. Well, yes, to some purpose, it may, to some extent, it may serve that purpose, but the true objective or meaning of homework is for the teacher to be able to evaluate a concept that was taught and see how the child mastered that concept. So that is why it is very important. If a child, or rather if a teacher is sending homework home, it is very important as a parent that if it's not clear what the homework is meant, how the homework is meant to be done, seek that clarification, so that the homework can be done well, and it meets the purpose that it was supposed to meet. Then and the other tip for homeschooling is it is important as a parent to use your child's special interest in learning. So by so doing, if you are able to tap into that special interest that your child has, this will enhance learning. And one of the things that the other thing that it also achieves is that it helps in managing anxiety. So I want to give an example of using your child's special interest to learn. If your child loves using Lego, or what we call blocks, then you can use those blocks to teach mathematics. So you can actually use the tools or the resources that you have at home that your child loves and use them for learning. So by so doing, you will manage anxiety, because as the child is using those the special interest to learn, they'll be calm, or they'll calm themselves, and it reduces their anxiety. So even for teachers, we advise that the teachers, but now in this case, the teacher is you, the parent, who is currently at home with your child. So adapt your teaching strategies to incorporate your child's interest. And I've given that example of using the blocks to teach mathematics, mathematical concepts like maybe addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So that is one way of using, or rather one benefit of using your child's interest in learning. The other thing is that once you use your child's interest in learning, it will increase the child's engagement in learning tasks, because they'll focus more on the activity, because they feel it is important to them. Like if they use the blocks to play, they may not even realize that they are learning, but the fact that they have interest in that activity of working with the blocks, that boosts or enhances the engagement of the child. So it is very important, as you're supporting your children during this time, to be able to determine what their special interests are and tap into those special interests to engage them while learning. So that is very, very important. And another very important tip that parents can use during this time of homeschooling is use of technology. And in this, the beauty of technology is that it will aid instruction and help students learn a range of skills. So this is what we call assistive technology. And I'm sure most of you parents can attest to it, that even pre-COVID, when schools are on, our children love gadgets, they love technology, and most of them are even able to engage better with the technology. That is that's the beauty of assistive technology. And what technology does, it assists our children in understanding task requirements.
Sorry, Esther, I think we lost you for a second. Just 1 second. Just 1 second. Okay.
Okay, I've unmuted.
Okay, good.
All right. Yeah, so most of our learners, actually majority of our learners, are visual learners, and therefore once we deploy technology for them, it helps them understand the task requirements, it aids in communication, and it even helps them in completion of tasks. And this is very evident. In fact, right now, we have noted even among my students, since we deployed the online learning for those that are taking the online classes, the teachers have observed that the students are actually learning better, they're improving and acquiring skills better than if you're engaging them in lecturing method. So technology comes in very easy. So that is one way we can also support our children at home using technology. And we have many apps that are available, either free or maybe at a minimal fee, that we can deploy to help our learners with assistive technology. And so the other tip that as parents you can use, or strategy that as a parent you can use, is find ways to connect your child to others. I said as I'm engaging my students, one of the things that is emerging very strongly among all the students, and this cuts across the board, is the feeling of isolation and feeling of loneliness. Most of most of children with special needs, they have a very limited circle of friends, or their social circle is limited, and in most cases it is limited to friends in school, and maybe a few in the neighborhood, or maybe a few in church. But I tend to see that school is where the children have most of their friends, and the fact that that link has been cut out, that has left our children feeling lonely and feeling isolated. However, all is not lost, because as a parent, you can find ways to connect your child with others. Of course, thanks to technology, your child can still be able to connect with other children. And it is very important. That social connectedness is very important. So you can find out, or you may know who your child's friends are, who their classmates are, and try to hook them up with their friends through the social media, WhatsApp, a call, for those that maybe can chat, because we have children who may be able to chat with their friends. That is also very important. So as a parent, it is important that your child connects with others. And others here, we are talking about friends and even family, because we have children who are very close with their cousins, or even their aunties. So it's good that we connect them. So, and one of the ways I've been asking my students, fine, you're feeling this way, what coping mechanisms are you employing to be able to cope with the situation that you're in? And one of the things they have strongly brought out is that they're reaching out to their schoolmates, they're reaching out to their classmates, and once they share their experiences, they realize that they are not alone, and they're able to encourage each other. Some are even able to consult each other on the learning tasks that they have been given, and it has helped a great deal for them to still feel that sense and that semblance of social connectedness. So this is very important, and as parents, it is important that you foster that for your child. So last but not least, it is important as a parent to seek help and don't try to do everything, because this sometimes is very common, and sometimes as a mother, we feel that we have enough resources to handle things alone on ourselves. But eventually what that leads to is that you realize that you will burn out. So it is important to seek respite. And by respite here, of course, I know in the ordinary times that we were in pre-COVID, I've always advised parents to seek respite in form of, maybe if you have somebody who can take care of the child or the children, for even if it's for an hour or a day so that you have time to yourself. It is very important. I know now we're in times that may not be possible with the the restrictions of movement, the cessation of movement, and of course now you don't want to expose your child. So that means we are all cooped up in the houses, and we are having to spend more time with the children. But I believe even within the family, we have supports that we can take care, that we can make use of. We have the siblings of the children. We have maybe the house managers or any other support that you use, or rather that you have at your disposal. So please use that support. Avoid having to do everything. Then, of course, now most importantly, when it comes to learning, it is important that you engage your child's teacher. Whether the child is doing online teaching or not, I still believe that teachers have a big role in guiding us as parents on how to help our teachers, and this is it's still possible virtually, so you can engage the teacher of your child either by having a call or email, and even videos that can help them, or even a platform like Zoom, because with the screen share, you can the teacher can actually demonstrate or explain to you how they will help, how you will be able to help your child. The other very important support system for your child, for those that are on therapies, are the therapists. I know this is one of the things that Sylvia was very concerned about at the beginning, just like all of us. How are our children going to access the therapy? So you can't bring the therapists in the house. It is a risky affair. You cannot take the child for the therapy, because that has been cut out, because these were services that they were sorry, these were services that were accessing in school. But now with the closures of school, the support system have been abruptly cut from our children. So, but thanks to technology, there's a lot of teletherapy that is taking place virtually. So it is still possible for you to access the services that your child was accessing before virtually. And I believe that all the professionals who are involved in your child's intervention plan are flexible enough to devise, to innovate ways that can help your child. So my plea is that please don't do everything on your own. Seek help. Reach out to other parents. Thankfully, we have Sylvia here, who has been very instrumental in connecting parents with other parents, connecting parents with professionals to offer supports and resources that will help us all cope and manage during these very unsettling times. I know we have other platforms, social media platforms of support groups where parents are drawing a lot of experiences from each other. So that engagement is very, very helpful, because you'll be able to learn something or two that can help you support your child. So I would like to first end there and take it back to Sylvia to take us to the next step. Thank you, Sylvia.
Thank you, Esther. Always a pleasure engaging with you in the wealth of knowledge. And I'm glad that you've also insisted on the same that I always say, do not forget yourself, take a break when it's necessary. But we all know sometimes you would want to do it so badly, but due to the circumstance, you just either can't, because we have limited support, we have variants, everything now is new, and you think twice before doing it. So I will open the floor for questions. You can please either raise your hand to ask a question. The essence of a Hangout is so that you have that one-on-one access to engage with the specialists. We've not yet heard from our second guest speaker. Maybe we shall bring her on board next time again to discuss if she doesn't catch up with us, because normally we do 1.5 hour session, because now when we open the floor, it takes a bit longer. But my main question now to you, Esther, because at the end of the day, I'm also a parent, and I feel the pain, walk the journey. And my greatest challenge has been having two special children, one having ADHD, the other one being autistic, and they have very, very different learning styles. We've tried having different routines, like we do, let's say, painting, like coloring with Andrew, and Bradley does fine motor skills, and then interchange them, but then keeping them engaged. What is the advisable time frame? Like, how long should you have an activity so that they don't also get bored? Because Andrew would rather anytime be on a tablet or any electric gadget to learn through song and stuff. But remember, we still have all this other homework that has come from school, and he doesn't seem to enjoy that at all. So every week I have a pile of homework that needs to get done. Then I have a child who does not want to do this homework. So how creative can we get, or how do we get through these moments?
All right, thank you very much, Sylvia, for that question. And I know it must be tough for you, because it's already tough having one. So when there are two, it is even tougher. But I thank God that you still have the strength to be able to support the boys. So one of the things I want to tell you, Sylvia, is that what your boys are going through is not anything unique to them. I've been receiving calls from parents from my school telling me that the children do not want anything to do with schoolwork. In fact, one told me once they open the laptop to be able to access the online classes, the child goes into a tantrum, almost a meltdown, and they literally run away, and they do not want to learn. And of course, at that point, maybe there's very little you can do as a parent. However, I think that's very common, and I believe those are some of the challenges that our children are having to go through with the new normal, the change in routine. Because I'm sure for your boys, they identify learning more in school, not at home. So probably home, so long as they have spent a day at home, even if there's homework in the evening, the fact that they have been at home, now they understand that now it is time for homework that came from home. But for them processing that we are not going to school, and now school is happening at home, that is still a big challenge for most of the children. And it is something the parents are having to struggle with to help. And remember, most of these children have very limited communication. So just to help them understand that this is our new normal, and this is our new environment for learning. So when it comes to the engagement, because again, we can't give up, we still have to seek out, look out for ways to engage, to drive engagement with the children. It would help, as I said, maybe to start at the beginning, start with very limited time, even 10 minutes of meaningful engagement. It is better than maybe 1 hour where the child is distracted, they are not focused, they are anxious. So if it could help, even if you start with five minutes, and or rather even 10 minutes, and of course with a lot of positive reinforcement, positive appraisals, the child will eventually maybe be able to transition from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. But anything beyond 30 minutes, I think that would be too long. So if you can keep it at 30, but again, vary the activities so that they are not on the same activity for so long. So it could be a coloring activity, it could be a drawing activity, it could be maybe playing with the Lego for activities of daily learning. It could be a brushing their teeth activity. It could be washing hands activity. So if you could vary the activities, even if maybe they are short activities, but the child is engaged, the child has interest, and you've been able to maintain that interest, that is more helpful. But again, there's no, maybe there's no single way of doing it, or rather there's no one way that applies to all the children. So I always say, as a parent, you're still the best judge to be able to know that the child is not interested in these activities. So how can I make it more interesting? And maybe I can contain the interest and focus for the next 10 minutes. And before that interest fades out, you quickly shift to something else or give them a break and be able to resume. So it's usually more of maybe try and error, and eventually as a parent, you're able to see what is that piques your child's interest.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? There is a comment. I'm having the same challenge with my son. All he wants to is travel up country. My mention of class is met with screaming and translates into a meltdown. But he wants activity with mama, so we do a routine class every day where we do various activities, coloring, cutting, sticking pictures. We use PEC and other materials for learning. At least that is something I believe I can adopt. But my main challenge most of the time also when it comes to the mess that comes with the hyperactivity that is involved with also now becomes an added point of stress. So you just try and balance. I think the best we have experienced so far was half an hour of one person, so long as we have zero electronics and give different engagements. One of the other questions that had come in, and one of the challenges I also experienced is my youngest is both left and right-handed. And when I'm giving him like something like to color, he will try with the right hand, stop, try with the left hand, stop. I've also tried, so I don't know which one to focus on. I just let him do it, but he's still trying to work with the fine motor skills. I tried to move to use the gadget for the same, where they're tracing with the finger. But the challenge is most gadgets, when they're guiding on how to write, it's always the sequence for like the way if you're writing, oh, it's this way. He's left-handed, so that becomes a challenge. He wants to go opposite, so it never goes away. I don't know what guidance or what advice you'd have for that when it's when we're dealing with that issue of a child being both right hand and left hand, and then fine motor skills, so that we can settle on which hand to work with. What would be your advice, Esther?
All right, so when it comes to the right left hand orientation, I always advise the parents to let the child be. Of course, there is a lot of cultural positions on right and left-handedness. And I think from that socialization that the ideal orientation is the right, it has forced many parents to force their children to transition from the left hand to the right hand, and that comes with its own complication, because it's all wired from the brain. And so what I always advise the parents is that if your child is left-handed, let them use the left hand. But you find that we have children whose orientation is not fully defined, and there are instances where they're using the right hand, and other instances they're using the right or left or both. And so when it comes to that, I always say with time, the child will be able to, the dominant hand will still prevail. But if where the orientation is already defined, if it is left, I have always told the parents, please don't stress the child with having to transition them to the right. And if the child can comfortably write, even if they can comfortably do the activities using the left hand as their dominant hand, there's no harm. However, when it comes to the issue of the gadgets, like you have explained, I think that is one of the challenges that we have in accessibility. or rather inclusion, even when it comes to technology, because I think most companies will come up with products with the right-handed people in mind. So maybe those are some of the things that as parents I have always said we need to lobby, because from our own experiences, from our own challenges, if we bring it out maybe to the people who are coming up with these products, maybe it was not intentional that they are leaving the left-handed children or people, but it may just not have occurred to them. And so those are some of the things. Of course, this is not a short-term remedy to the problem, but I know it can be very challenging. However, maybe as a parent, it's just maybe to see how your son can navigate that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else? I see we have several teachers on the floor. I would like to give room for one teacher to just share with us what challenges have you experienced like with online learning? And apart from that, maybe the issues that parents are facing, and if there is any parent who's tried to do homeschooling. I know one of the other challenges that we have is you may want to do something, but we have limitation on what to use as our support aids. Esther, as we wait for someone to raise their hand and stuff like that. Yes, teacher Isaac. Please raise your hand so that I can be able to know you would like to speak before. Thank you. Yes, Isaac, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Isaac.
There's an activity I'm trying to do on Zoom with my students. And what other activity can we do on Zoom?
Which one, what have you tried, so that at least we know now what else we can do?
I've shown them a video.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we've tried using YouTube. Yes.
Okay. Esther, please, if you may. Then now if there is something left out, I can help Isaac.
Okay. Hi, Isaac. Isaac is my former student. So I'm glad to see him. So Isaac, it would help if I would know the level of your children, because not for children with special needs, not everything would fit them. It's not what we call one size fits all. So for you to be able to determine what activity you will do on Zoom with your student, it will help that if you have the, of course, the schemes of work, you have the lesson plan, and you have the objectives that you intend to meet for your students. So once you have the course outline that has the topics, then that will inform the skills and the knowledge that you want to impart on your learners. Then from there, that will help you come up with activities that will help you achieve the skills and the knowledge that you want to teach. Thank you, Isaac.
Okay. The other thing I would also realize, the activities, there are some that are online that can engage our children, depending also, it varies, because the challenge, like Esther had said earlier, of one size fits all becomes quite hard to say, like, if I do this, maybe all of them will be interested. So you find maybe when you're doing the videos, there's a child who'd rather do poetry instead of that. There's a child who would like animation. Someone else would like to relate with videos that are more of real children engaging. So I believe there is a lot of variance. So if you mix them up, then at least you'll be able to handle every different child differently, because that's one of the things I realize and one of the challenges we go through. And here the limitation for us as caregivers, let's say it's something like TV there, and our children, remember we also have typical children that we have to look out for. So this one wants to watch this and engage in this other one wants something totally different. So that's some of the challenges that we go through. And I believe what personally I've tried to do is teach them turn taking. So if you ask them what they want, they tell you exactly. Let's say one wants let's say Peppa Pig, the other one wants, my son is a big fan of news. I never understand what that is all about, but he would want to watch news. And he will tell you exactly, I want Babu, I want, Citizen and stuff like that. He's not Babu, but he knows exactly what it is that he wants. So I have Rose, who has mentioned that the son is 14. He's come with a longer concentration span. He's been writing alphabets and numbers like forever now, like 7 years. He doesn't seem to know the value of numbers or letters. How can I help him? He's willing to learn, and I am also willing to assist, I believe. Mm-hmm. Esther, that's
all right. Yes. Thank you, Rose, for that question. And so I see your son is 14 and he's been learning for like 7 years now. So that means he joined school while he was around 7. And so you say he's been writing alphabets and numbers and has not yet mastered number value or the meaning of letters. And so you want to know how he can be helped to learn, and the fact that the willingness is there. So when it comes to teaching number value for children, especially for children with profound learning challenges, I know that's a real challenge. And as much as maybe the child may have what we call rote learning of numbers and letters, where they can even sequence, they can say the numbers, and that is always the starting point, because that's the fundamental of numeracy skills. And most of the learners will be able to rote count and even rote say the letters. However, the next step now from there is, of course, attaching meaning to those letters and numbers, and that's where the value of the numbers come in. So if it is 1, and yes, they can be able to say number 1, but would they attach meaning to that 1? Because 1 is a symbol, so but it has a meaning. So if you ask them, maybe bring me 1 cup, if the child is able to bring 1 cup, that tells you that they have the value of the number. Bring two bananas. But what I've found is with children with multiple and profound learning challenges, most of them are not able to transition beyond the basics of rote counting, and sometimes it can be very frustrating for the child, and even for the parent, and even sometimes for the teachers. And so one of the things that helps when you're trying to teach number value is to try and now use objects, because if probably you try to explain in words, that's a very abstract concept for a child who may be having learning issues. So it would help if you can now try to attach that number to objects. So if it's number 1 and you put 1 object against that number, they'll be able to see the relationship. If it's number 5 and you try to attach 5 objects, that may help. And in most cases, because your son is a bit older, it helps if you're able to also use maybe what you call realia, or real objects. So it could be objects found in the house, in the kitchen. But I know even you may have tried this and maybe it is still not working. And I have I know I've even students who are 20 years plus, and even with many years of trying to teach them number value and reading, because once you can say the letters, you can say the letters of the alphabet. The next thing is now trying to blend those, or first of all, to even attach meaning to those letters. What sounds do those letters make? Then blending those sounds to make words. So I know I know we have quite a number of students with significant learning challenges who are not able to make that leap from the basic phonetics to learning of the phonics, or rather the sounds, to be able to go to the next step of learning words and maybe constructing sentences, paragraphs, and reading stories. So when it gets to that, my advice is, once you're able to maybe use real objects to be able to attach value to the numbers, it helps. But I also want to be very realistic that we have cases where the learners are not able to transition, and I don't want to discourage any parent, but I also want to capture all the scenarios that we have when teaching children with special needs. So if it doesn't go beyond just maybe counting, and the child is not able to make that leap to the next level of skills building, as a parent, I always say that there's something else maybe your child can do, because life is not all about maybe now number work or literacy. So maybe is there any other skill that the child can be able to do? So could it be music? Could it be sports? And let's focus on what is working, and as opposed to what is not working. And we define the child by what they are able to do and what they are good at, as opposed to what they are not able to do, and maybe invest so much in it, but eventually there's not that breakthrough. So that is always my advice, because I think there's always the law of compensation, that if one area is not working, there's another one that the child can thrive very, very well in. And God is also a very fair God. So he always makes sure that he compensates us for something that may be missing out. So Rose, that would be my advice to your son. Thank you.
Okay. That's awesome. Just thinking, I see a lot of times when in the groups, when we are sharing, like my child is able to do this and another child is able to do this, and then it becomes a discouragement for parents whose children have not been able to meet any milestones. And there comes moments when you get phone calls from fellow caregivers, and you want to guide, because when someone asks you, how did you get your child to start writing for something like that? We know there is the aids for the gripping that are not readily available here. How would you put it? Like, what is the best way, apart from consistency? What are some of the things that we can do, like right now at home, to encourage that continuity now that we do not have therapy? Because you see, fine motor skills is being enhanced during the therapy sessions, speech is being enhanced during speech, and of course that conversation they usually have with other children. And for us, because of the risk of having our children outside, we will find that we'd rather keep our kids at home no matter what, instead of putting them at risk and taking them outside. So what would be your advice? What's the best way to continue with some of these things that will be beneficial, directly or indirectly, to be able to build our children up?
All right, thank you very much, Sylvia. And I think there are many practical strategies that parents can use. And that's where I started by saying that it is very important as a parent, if that support service that your child was receiving has been cut off due to school closures, it helps that you keep engaging with your therapist, because yes, there are those there are those milestones that the child maybe had already received. There's the plan, the treatment or the intervention plan that the therapist may have already created. And you've talked about consistency, and it is very important that maybe that plan is consistently followed, so that maybe parents are not left on their own devices to be able to determine, so what is it that I need to do? Because where there's a plan, it can be very seamless, where the therapist shares the plan, and that plan should come with the activities that the child can do to be able to achieve the skills or the milestones that they want the child to achieve. But in the absence of that, because I don't want to assume that every child has a therapist and every parent is working with a therapist who can guide them on that. So for instance, when it comes to the fine motor skills, there are many activities that as a parent you can use to develop and enhance the motor skills. So one of the things that we always encourage, and especially for the younger children, is the Play-Doh, or what they call the modeling clay, the plasticine. So that's a very important resource to help the children developing the motor skills. And the beauty is, as they are rolling it, as they are molding it, it helps with the fine motor skills. But another beauty with Play-Doh is for those that are still learning the numbers, they're learning their letters, it's also, because it's very vast, it's very versatile. So there are many activities you can do with the Play-Doh. So the children can form the letters, they can form the numbers, and while at it, as they're cutting, as they're shaping the numbers, as they're shaping the letters, that's how you actually develop the motor skills. So Play-Doh is a very important resource that every parent should have, and not only for the special needs parent. Every child who has the child at that young age, that is a very important resource to have. Cutting papers using scissors, and of course this has to be child-friendly scissors. Again, we don't want to run into accidents, so we have plastic scissors, or very child-friendly scissors that are available in the stores, textbook center, and even some supermarkets. I know they store them. So cutting helps, and the beauty with cutting is that yes, even as they are cutting, for those probably that would be able to cut along the line, you can give them papers with pictures, and maybe ask them to sort those pictures as they cut them, or as you help them to cut. So there's another skill there that you'll be teaching. So you can actually maybe look for a magazine or a newspaper, and maybe you theme the activity. So probably it could be fruits and or plants, or people, family members, so that it's not just cutting alone. Remember, we said you have to arouse the interest of the child. So if they feel they're just cutting papers, they may lose the interest within a very short time. But if you add flavor to that activity by bringing maybe papers that have pictures, so that we will cut the picture and maybe create a scrapbook, and maybe page 1 will be about fruits. So once we cut the fruits, we'll stick and paste them. Then page 2 will be about family members. So they will cut a mother, a father, and children. So in that, there's a lot of there are a lot of skills that the child will be learning. So you develop them, the motor skills, but there are also other skills, sorting skills, and other skills that the child is learning. So that is usually very important. Another important.
May I interject on that point, so that at least we can, the challenge I've seen when it comes to scissors and cutting and tearing paper, yes. How do we teach them boundaries? Because these are things now I see, probably I understand they do in school, but now like when my son comes to the house, any book starts being torn. Like you'd give him a book, try and just look at the photos. That's the business. So I'm even afraid of buying any more. And also when it comes to scissors, there is that fear that, you know, they're telling them the difference, that there is scissors for what you do in school and there is the scissors for home. Because you find them with scissors if they find that, let's say if you leave the room door open. How do we create that boundary for them to understand? Not every newspaper needs to get cut. Not every book is supposed to be torn. How do we teach them that level?
Yes, for that, I think it depends on the level of understanding. So for those children that can understand, you can actually give the instructions, but it would also help maybe if you can have the papers or the books that you want them cut at their reach. Then anything else that you don't want cut, if the child does not have that understanding that selectively there's what is to be cut and there's what cannot be cut. If they don't have that kind of understanding, it would help if you can keep anything that you don't want cut out of their reach, and whatever it is that you want them to cut, it is within their reach. And probably, just like I said, creating a learning space. If what you want cut can be in a place that is part of their learning space, and so they know whatever mama has put here, it has her stamp that it can be cut, and anything that cannot be cut is not in the learning space. Same as scissors, and not just scissors, because there are many dangerous tools that we have in the house, and so for children who do not have the understanding that the tools can be dangerous, they can be detrimental to their safety, it will help that you keep those kind of tools out of their reach. So I think for those that have understanding, you'll explain. But for those, it's a matter of just ensuring that what is not safe for them is out of reach for them. Thank you. Because that's what we do in school. That's what we do in school. And it has worked very well. And of course, the beauty is, even for children on the autism spectrum, as much as they may be nonverbal, the beauty is they have the receptive language. So I'm sure you'll be able to explain to Andrew, this is not to be cut. So even if maybe he may not express himself, he may have understood the instruction. But if he doesn't, then as we've said, keep it out of his reach.
Super. Do we have any other question or contribution or challenge? But I'm seeing Teacher Isaac is back. Apparently he got knocked off before we could finish elaborating. The question was what he can do with his students on Zoom. So I don't know if he had heard what we said earlier. But before that, there
activities.
Yes, activities. Okay, so there is one question. My son is 5 with ability to focus and always on the go. He's nonverbal and has poor fine motor skills. He loves singing and unusual skill playing football when he was from 1 to 3 years before his skills started disappearing. What can I do to ensure he does not forget his skills?
All right, I'm trying to read the chat. If you can give me 2 seconds to just read the chat.
So in the meantime, let me respond to Isaac. Isaac, we had said that there is the... Hello, Isaac?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah? All right, I was saying there is the need to have variety, because you have variety also in the students that you're interacting with. So whatever activities that you download on Zoom, because you see, it's the same thing. If you usually have computer classes in school, if you have Zoom, that means you can access the same activities by sharing your screen. Yeah, so it does not limit you as a teacher of what activities you can actually do with them, because you see, it's depending on if it's sing along, if it's poetry, if it is communication. So if you share your screen with them the same way right now, you're able to see me and they can see you. So whatever activity that you want them to engage in, let's say if it's a sing along, and they thrive on that
Yes.
repetition. So they will be able to see what is going on the screen and do the same. So maybe that's one of the things that you can do. And also just make it variable so that at least you cater for all levels of interest amongst your group, depending on how many you're handling at a go. Yes, Esther.
All right. Yes, I think that's very important advice to Isaac, and I cannot emphasize more. So back to Brenda on her son who is 5 and has ability to focus and has poor fine motor skills. So she says that the son was very good at playing football, and that skill is disappearing, and she's asking what can be done so that he does not forget his skill. So for any child, not just child with special needs, skill development, and not just for a child, for anybody, even for us, the grown-ups, skill development thrives on consistency. So, of course, consistency and interest, and of course, the practice. And what happens with our children is because in most cases, skills development may not be automatic. Just like it is for typical learners. And so that means that there has to be a lot of work that goes into skills development. And one of the things that you have to do as a parent and as the teacher for your parent is to ensure that once if there's a skill that you want your child to develop, it will help that you devise all strategies to be able to bring that skill out, to be able to develop the skill. So you've got to come up with strategies that will help the child practice the skill. So like football is a practical skill. So if your child had interest, because a skill like football has to start with the interest and the passion. So if that interest is there, it becomes very easy to develop the skill. So then once the interest has been identified, so the next thing is to develop the skill. Now, the technicality or the practicality of it. So, of course, through practice, and then the practice has to come with consistency so that the child is not practicing today, then the next time he's practicing is maybe after a month. So that consistency really helps. And another thing, it is one thing to have interest, and it's another to sustain or to maintain that interest. So it also helps if you realize that your child has an interest in some skill, that you offer a lot of positive reinforcement in terms of encouragement, praising them, or even at the risk of sounding like you're bribing the child, which is not the case, giving them some rewards once in a while, and especially where you notice effort that the child has gone out of their way, they have put in extraordinary effort. There's no harm in rewarding them. So that is one of the ways that I encourage parents to develop skills, and not just even the extracurricular skills, even academic skills. So start by developing the interest, then the practice, then the consistency. Then with that, at least you are on a sure journey of growing that skill. Thank you, Sylvia. You're muted, Sylvia. You're muted.
Yes, thank you. I was avoiding outside noise interrupting with what you were saying. So Pauline had her hand up. I hope she's ready to speak, Pauline. I have unmuted you.
Hello,
Pauline?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Pauline.
So I just wanted to add on to what you're telling Isaac about the activities they can do online. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we've been doing in my school is using PowerPoint. So let's say if it's a topic on birds, the teacher can get many pictures of different birds and put them on the slides and show the children and ask them, what bird is this? So they're really making good use of the PowerPoint. And another thing is we send children, the parents, like things to print out, so we can even do cutting and sticking. So for example, one of the lessons was on Noah's Ark, and we sent parents animals in pairs. So the children got to cut and stick on Noah's boat. So those are some of the things I was just wanted him to know, examples of things he can also do during the Zoom classes.
Okay. That is awesome. I had not even thought about that. That's one of the ways of things that can be done. Now, I have someone in our space who is a champion for cerebral palsy. He has been able to beat the odds, because this is just to encourage another caregiver, another parent. So amongst us, we have Kamonyo, who currently works for Communications Authority of Kenya, and he has cerebral palsy. So even as we're talking about challenges that our children are going through and the discouragement that parents usually feel, I would like for him to just share his experience, how school was, how hard it was or how easy it was, and what keeps him going. I know one of the things, it always takes that parent who does not give up on their child and believes in them. But I'm sure that is extraordinary to get to the level, because he has also gone all the way up to university. So Kamonyo, we will be patient with Kamonyo, we all understand. So Kamonyo, it's your turn, kindly speak. 1 second, let me, I unmute you. I can't hear you. I don't know why it's refusing to unmute. Unmute yourself, Kamonyo, please. Karongo, are you able to unmute yourself? Because I'm unmuting and it's not actioning it.
Call.
Okay, go ahead. We can hear you.
Amadi Karugu Kamoyo. Me, what I can say, I was in a special school throughout my writing, whether wasn't good as such, even when the teachers were writing notes. You see the way some people are fast in writing notes. So we in the evening, I used to borrow a class with book to write notes, but I was able to get up to KCPE. In KCPE, I remember in our class, we were two of us who could not write as fast. So we had to go to see a doctor who actually wrote a report of me and my classmate, and we were given extra time. Even in high school, we were given extra time. Now, I came to a time that I needed to further to go to college. Through a friend of mine called Eva Joike of Hangout special tutorials, I was able to to enroll to a college which, which was digital advisory and learning center. Now, the good thing about it was now my assignments I used to type them and submit online. Then I used to type projects and submit online up to my degree. Then I was able to get internship at Communication Commission of Kenya for 3 months, which later when it ended, I was told to go and get my bachelor's degree. When I finished, I wrote back to them and I was called back on the 16th of March 2016 as a contract, which later I got employed in 2017. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamunyo. That is quite encouraging. Maybe I could just engage you a bit and ask a question. Do you believe, even for other students right now with cerebral palsy and challenges of fine motor skills, if they were able to be given assistive devices, in this case, looking at maybe if instead of having to work extra in the evening catching up with notes, if you had an auditory recorder, if your exam was done digitally, like one-on-one, where you were able to respond directly, do you believe that would have made a difference for you?
Yes.
Okay.
And I also think if I had a one-on-one with a teacher, the way like I can sit with you and have a conversation. If I had something like that, I could have even done better. But the issue is you are a class of 21 people. So how are you able to choose now? Karugu, I will teach him one-on-one. So I think now for the teachers to be employed more in every school, and I also believe that if a school has a maximum of 20 teachers, I believe like 11 of them should be teachers who have had special needs, so that when the other students are going forward, these teachers can sit one-on-one with a student.
Okay, thank you. And do you believe, was the curriculum inclusive? You mentioned you were in a special school. When you were sitting for your KCP, did you feel like you were at equal, or would you have preferred it was any other way in terms of the excuse, at least the allowance they gave you extra time? What else did you find as a challenge that you would have preferred if something was done in line with that?
Yeah, no. Okay, like me what I was told. You see, like for the papers with have choices, I was told to tick on the question answer. So what I can say, okay, you see when they do KCPE, you're given an answer sheet, which has number 1 up to 50. Then on each number there is A, B, C, and D. So what happens in mind? I used to read my index number and my name. Then I'm told back on the question paper. And the marking on the question paper, they used to tape it together and go with them.
Ah, okay. So at least there was some consideration, you would say, yes?
Yes.
That worked perfectly. Okay,
Yes.
Thank you for enlightening us. I know most of us as parents, we always think about what lies in the future and we get scared. What message would you have for us who are feeling afraid, like there is no inclusive future for our children? And also tell us your degrees, which degrees and the masters that you did, so that at least believe a parent or a teacher somewhere will be able to encourage another.
What I can say for the parents, never give up. You can see your child is not coming up, but he will soon come up and he or she will be able to tell you, Mama, I want this and this. So I've done bachelor's in business administration, faculty of entrepreneurship and small business management.
Okay, well done and congratulations. That's quite encouraging. And I like the spirit that you also did not give up, because sometimes maybe as a parent, you might want to push your child, but if your child is not also in the space to keep going, then it will not come to fruition. Since there are no more questions, I believe we can wind up. Also our time, we always say 1.5 hours. I know we can do this over and over again. So next week, we shall be having our missing guest, same time, same place, so that, or we shall communicate if there's a special request to adjust the time so that we can be very inclusive, considering of the difference in time zone. So don't miss out, as we will have our guest still here, because I'm sure we were looking forward to have that conversation and just hear from a different side of the world, because we are now speaking in our African and Kenyan context. So if we hear what exactly the people in the States are doing, and we see if there is a difference or if there are things that we can improve on, and then learn from it. So Esther, thank you very much for taking your time to be with us, for enlightening us, and and for enlightening us in all this. I think the presidential address has just started 4 minutes ago, so as to allow all of us to get a catch up on what is going on in the current situation. We shall end our meeting, and I'd like to say a big thank you. And don't forget, follow us on Twitter, because we always have conversation going on inclusion. We are having small and big wins, as you have seen. We were given an opportunity as caregivers to now be part of the cushion funds that the government has. So all our advocacy and making noise is not in vain. and we shall continue doing the same until we are fully included. So on Twitter, we are Andy Speaks 4. On Instagram, it's Andy Speaks. And on YouTube, Andy Speaks for Special Needs Persons. And 4 is number 4 because we focus on 4 pillars and also 4 issues. And at the same time, on Facebook, we have a group also where you get a lot of information and latest one-on-one conversations on what's going on and updates on where you can benefit and get support. So be sure to follow us and join us. And if you'd like to also be a volunteer to Andy Speaks, because it's a purely voluntary basis organization, you can always DM us and we shall add you on the list. When life resumes near normal, then you at least can come in and support. For this weekend, we have an activity. We shall be supporting caregivers in Mukuru Kwanjenga with medication, sanitary wear, sanitizer, and food. So if anyone would like to join in as the community of Andy Speaks, do be sure to let me know in the various groups that we have. So have a fabulous weekend. Don't forget what Essie said. Essie said, don't forget yourself. Respect is important. And when your child just doesn't feel it, respect it and reschedule. It's never that serious, is what I always tell myself when I feel like I'm failing when I don't stick to the routine of what the boys have to do. Thank you very much, and we love you. Have a fabulous weekend. Bye.